Polypede Works here, coming to you once again with One Piece chapter 1115, entitled Continental Fragments. So, this chapter... Okay, we got some stuff to talk about, alright? First of all, we are continuing with Yamato's cover story, and she's getting bento boxes from Hiyori and Otoko. So that's pretty neat. It's weird that Otoko's hair is colored in black when in the anime her hair is pink, so that's her canonical color. But Oda does that from time to time. But that's not important. But what's important is that we keep following Yamato. And what's important is that she's not hearing what's going on right now, because apparently, because Orochi had a transponder snail in his castle, the people of Wano can listen to Vegapunk's message. And we see that. And Momonosuke is commenting that, oh, Joy Boy was a pirate just like Luffy. And in the shot 2, we see Hot Shinobu and little baby Tama. So that's cool. That's all cool that they know what's going on, but Yamato does not. That's kind of interesting. I wonder why that is. And then, this is great. In G4, not the defunct cable network, but the Marine base, we see that Damalo Black Damalo Black is back, baby. The fake Luffy has switched up into being a fake kid. The fake Frankie is now a fake Wire. Fake Zoro is now fake Heat, and Drip, the fake Sanji, is now fake Killer. The man who is called Drip, who was fake Sanji, well, first of all, we know he's alive, because the last time we saw him, he was being suffocated by Caribou. So he's alive. That's cool. They're locked up in G4. Drip painted his afro to look like Killer's helmet. The cosplays are amazing as always. So, more interestingly, I guess it's because there are no significant women on Kid's crew. Fake Nami and fake Robin are not in the prison cell with them. So that's pretty interesting. But the fact that Damon Black is trying to be Kid, and it looks like he just scribbled on his other arm with like a magic marker, because you can kind of see it behind the bars here. That is so funny. That is amazing. And he calls Joy Boy Joy Toy. Oh, Damalo Black, never change. Oh, that's so good. That's so good. So, ladies and gentlemen, is this Jika? Is this your Jika man here? Is this Kid's Final Four? No, I kid. So I guess this is actually Useless Captain Mid. Useless Captain Mid indeed. Woo! Useless Captain Mid. Woo, boy. Okay, that's good. Sorry. It's so stupid. Oh, Damalo Black never changed. So who's next? It's going to be Kid? I mean, not Kid. It's going to be Law. It's going to cosplay as Law. And then who's going to be Beppo? I guess the fake Zoro's going to be Beppo because he's already fat. So he's going to be Beppo. Oh my God. It's so stupid. Anyway, Vegapunk goes on to say that he has a handful of poneglyphs to confirm the information that he has accrued, but it chronicles that a great war did happen in the distant past, and Joy Boy did face off against the organization that we now know as the world government, but back then they were allied powers. And then we see Dory, Broggy, and Luffy running from Warcry. And then there's an interesting cut back to the lab, in which we see Marcus Mars using Conqueror's Hockey. So they all have Conqueror's Hockey confirmed, because later on we see Saturn do the same thing. He uses it to knock out all the Den Mushi. I did not know you could do that, but they are living creatures. It does make sense. I just did not think of that being a possibility for one to do. That's so fascinating. That's incredible. And as Vegapunk goes on to explain that the Alliance was brought together to fight Joy Boy and his alliance, we see a shot of what Vegapunk, I guess, thinks Joy Boy looked like, which is a clue for us. So apparently we see that it looks like Luffy. It's an awakened person using the powers of the Nika fruit. But the fact that they're not large is interesting. but that probably doesn't mean too much, seeing as how silhouettes rarely ever do mean anything, but who's to say? But yeah, Vegapunk does not know the cause of the conflict, but he does think that it was because of opposing ideologies between the two groups. But he then mentions that Joy Boy was born in a fantastical civilization, which we kind of figured that. And then we cut to Zoe. This is very sad. For a while, you may have seen a few videos on the channel, I have been a big Kara supporter for Straw Hat, but this effectively kills it after, what, I think 10 years? Has been probably like 5 to 10 years it's been. Because we see Zoe, we actually cut to the inner city of Zoe, and we see Carrot, Sicilian, and Wanda, all the boys, all the warriors, all together. So Carrot did in fact go back to Zoe. I am sorry to all those who are with me in the mud for the Carrot agenda. The Carrot agenda is now dead. There's going to be a new video coming up fairly soon, probably next month or so. We'll have to see, or maybe sooner than that, in which I go over who I think are going to be the last members to join the crew. And a few of them, well, all of them actually are in this chapter. So yeah, I'm just saying, something to look out for, because I think it's clear based on how the story is being written who we're going to go with next if we go beyond 10, which we still might, because the characters I have in mind still have character plot lines that need to be worked out. For example, like Yamato. And then, of course, we got Bonnie. Those are 2 freebies I'll just give you. But yeah, I think we're going to go beyond the 10 limit, but I think the crew is going to be complete very soon. And we'll get to another interesting person later on. But next, out of the darkness comes the light. After 20 years, after multiple people saying that he was a filler character, we have Silver Fox Foxy of the Foxy Pirates here in his debut, his first debut after the time skip, baby. Let's go! Oh, Foxy's here. What is that peanut head fool talking about? Oh, I love him. Oh, he's got a mustache. He's got a W mustache. He looks like Wario. This is great. Plus a beard. He's gorgeous. Oh, yeah, baby. Foxy. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. He's in the thumbnail. Put him in the thumbnail. He's in the thumbnail. Of course he is. It's Foxy, baby. Foxy is in the story. He's back. Now, that's somebody I hope joins the alliance. And his boat is just a rickety raft now. So that's kind of interesting. He's been put back to square one in a similar state to Luffy. Very interesting. But I'm glad he got a figurehead now that looks like him. That's cool. Well, no, his figurehead, if I recall, was just a fox. It looks like one of those masked duplicates that he used against Luffy during the Davy Back fight. So that's cool. That's cool. That's cool. So, oh, and also Poor Jimmy and Hamburg, I think his name was, are with him. So, yeah, all the boys are back together. He lost Pickle. He lost Big Pan. That's sad. Like, Big Pan can fit on this raft, right? I'm surprised Hamburg can't, because Hamburg is huge. But yeah, Poor Jimmy and Hamburg. A lot of people were talking about, it's very interesting how we go from Poor Jimmy saying, "Oh, boss, you're making me hungry," when Foxy calls Vegapunk a peanut head. But then we do cut back to Vegapunk saying, "And therein lies our problem." So I wonder if those are connected or those are set up in a particular way to mean something. Don't know. But then cutting back to the lab, we have Stussy talking to Edison over the telecom. And Edison says that Stussy should lower the barrier because there's no use of keeping it up, seeing as how there are monsters who can come and go as they please through the barrier. We get another shot, like I mentioned earlier, of Saturn using Conqueror's Haki to knock out more Denden Mushi as the two try to find the source of the broadcast. So that's crazy. Yeah, all of them can use Conquerors. That's insane. Edison says we can do all we can for them and they'll make it. So yeah, we find out from Nami, they're moving their blockade to the northeast, the Marines are. And then we get another cut back to Stussy, saying that it's good to hear that the Straw Hats will make it out. And she was worried that Stella would never forgive her if she let them get caught. Sadly, she goes on to say, "But I don't know what to do with myself now. Now that Stella's gone, who am I meant to live for? I have no purpose." Oh no. So that's why I'm wondering, you know what would be crazy? If she became a main character. I had this thought as I read through the chapter initially, but reacting to it now, I keep thinking, is she the Robin of this arc? I want to say no, just based on there's not a future plot that needs her expertise. Because the cool thing about Robin, and the reason why Robin is in the narrative, is because she does open the world up to this whole big event that we're talking about now in this very chapter. We're opening up to the history of the world. That's her purpose for the story, to uncover where the One Piece is based off the clues left behind by the ancient civilization, which then spirals into this whole big ancient war plot, right? That's why she's there, to read the poneglyphs, to tell us, the readers, more about the world based on the Straw Hat's adventures. So Stussy doesn't have that, though. What Stussy has is, well, she has the accolade of being the first clone in history, so she is a unique creature in that way, but I don't know. But yeah, I don't know, because I guess she's also, like I said in my Stussy video, the first artificial dough fruit user in history. That's a thing too, because her fruit most likely came before the creation of Momonosuke's fruit. So that's another cool thing about her. But yeah, I don't know what can be done with her, because I don't think her relationship with Bonnie is that strong for like Bonnie to go off with her. From all of what we've seen, Bonnie is the most likely to become a Straw Hat, because I'm sorry, I can't believe her doing anything else. It seems ludicrous. But yeah, I don't know. And Kaku pities her, which is also pretty sweet. Speaking of Bonnie, we cut to Bonnie, and she and Sanji, who is face planted in the ground, along with Oimon and Kashi, are fighting Nesjuro. And someone says, don't let him use his sword. This geezer can cut anything, which is kind of wild, because later he goes on to prove that. So he says, sense the voices, and he says Bonnie, and starts to cut. Frankie super! Frankie comes in, pulls Bonnie out of the way of Nesjuro's swing. The resulting swing cuts the figurehead off of Oimon and Kashi's ship, and Bonnie shrinks back down to being a little baby. She then says something very interesting, which further extends her parallels with Luffy. She then goes on to say, I can't maintain distorted future for very long, and she goes wheeze, 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 which reminds us of what? Gear Third, because she's coming out of gigantification into being very small, which is basically going from a transform state back into her normal state, but still is very reminiscent of what Gear Third's previous drawbacks were in the pre-time skip. After using Gear Third, Luffy would shrink down to a chibi version of himself. So we're further and further increasing the parallels between Bonnie and Luffy. There is no way she ain't enjoyed it. The sauce is being put on too thick. She's the apprentice. I made a video about that. Go watch it. I can't see it any other way. I can't see it. I'm sorry, I can't see it any other way. A long-term belief I have had for a while now is that after Jinbei, which I don't know what's going to happen with Jinbei, but after Jinbei, I have always said that the remaining crew members, however many we get, are probably all going to be characters that we know already. So there's not like the growing pains of introducing new people and all that, because most of the characters that I think are going to join the crew have been in the story now for about 10 plus years. The youngest one being, I think it's been 5 years, give or take, for Yamato. So yeah, but then all these characters too, I think still have things to do and more important goals to meet in the narrative. But again, we'll see. I'll make a video about that. We'll see. But as Vegapunk keeps talking, the voice century ended with Joy Boy's defeat. And when he says that, we get a small double panel of the Iron Giant and Zunisha reacting, which of course these are the two beings who reacted to the Drums of Liberation. So that makes sense. Nesjuro curses Vegapunk and apparently flies away. I'm not sure if he's using Moonwalk. He could be, because I don't think he has the power of flight. But he just flies away and goes off to cut the entire cloud base of where, the entire cloud base of where Punk Records is. Cuts it in two. But he says a very interesting line before he does this. And we also get, like I've said before, we get a comparison shot of him compared to the entire structure of Puck Records and the cloud that it sits on and the city that Puck Records is held in, he's but a tiny speck compared to it. So he cuts the whole thing in one swing, releasing the Cypherpole agents that were in prison along with all the Seraphim. So yeah, all the Seraphim are back on the board, which means they can be captured. We'll have to see where they go. That's another video coming up. We'll see. But Vegapunk goes on to say, but the aftermath had greater consequences, meaning the aftermath of Joy Boy's defeat. The wake of the ancient conflict scarred the world, and those scars never healed. Then he goes on to explain that, yeah, it's obvious to the people of the world today that traveling from island to island is treacherous because of the dangers that lie within the ocean. People say, well, that's obvious. Everyone knows that. And then he agrees. Yes, everyone knows that. But that wasn't the case 1,000 years ago. And when he says this, we see the revolutionaries reacting to it. But he goes on to say that the ancient world was swallowed up by the ocean. We are now living atop the remnants of continental fragments, chapter title spotted, of the land masses that once were. So One Piece is basically that movie Waterworld. They're living on the tops of what remains after the sea gobbled everything up. So every place is, like many people have said, that every place is like Wano. Every place has a undercity. That is incredible because it makes you think, what about these tiny little island towns? Were they affected more by this event than, say, bigger kingdoms like Dressrosa and Alabasta? It's really something to think about. And I wonder, like in the case of Drum, is it called Drum Island or Drum Kingdom? Not because of the Drum Mountains up top where people are living at now. Maybe it's called that because the entire landmass looks like a big drum, but you can't see that because it's under the ocean. That is something really to think about. My goodness. And it gives thought to, I wonder, could people like Wapol and the Heart Pirates, could they have seen that? Because they are in submarine and they use submarines for the majority of their travel, I'm assuming. Because Wapol, of course, is the first submarine we see in the story. And then later we see Law's ship, the Polar Tank. So, yeah, I wonder. The world of a millennia ago sleeps unseen at the bottom of the ocean. Yep. We see Nojiko this chapter because we cut to Kokiyashi Village, which is very nice to see her. But then Vegapunk just goes on to say how hard that is to believe. But there were several vast continents back then. So, yeah, the One Piece world was presumably a bigger version of our own world. That's crazy to think about. This change in the world helps explain how a century of history could be censored. A feat that seems nigh impossible, but it makes sense when you consider that the undeniable conclusion of all this data points to, within a mere century, the average sea level rose a staggering 200 meters. I looked this up. 200 meters is 2 football fields worth of water worldwide. Which is even more impressive because, as far as we know, based on what Marco says way back in the Odin flashback, there are millions and millions of islands, which means there could have been millions and millions of continents. So 200 meters of water managed to cover all those places up. All those places are gone because of that. That is insane. Going on, we get some very interesting information. We learned from the Marines stationed outside of Egghead that a warship is only 60 meters tall. That means a warship is exactly 1 meter taller than the Thousand Sunny, because the Thousand Sunny is 59 meters tall. So that's interesting. I never knew that was the case. So that's some cool world building information for you. We finally get a confirmation about that after 25 years. So I'm happy that happened. I'm happy Egghead has been the land of answers so far. But the Marines can't worry about that because they have a job to do. They have to save the Cypherpole agents that have been freed thanks to Nosjuro. And we see the destruction that Nosjuro caused. Goodness gracious, the whole bottom half of Punk Records is just gone. It's just one clean cut. That's insane that the landscape has changed so drastically from one character's action. Wild. Cut back to Mocktown. And the people of Mocktown are still laughing at Vegapunk, except for this one long-haired dude in the middle. So I wonder if this guy is going to be important, or is he someone we've seen before? Because it's so fascinating to me that everybody, literally everybody in the Mocktown section is losing their marbles in hysterical laughter. But this guy, he is stone-faced, looking at the projection with all the seriousness in the world. So I wonder if he's going to be important. Cutting back to Drum, we see Dalton, we see one of the giant rabbits, and Kureha just laughing about how the world still has surprises to show us. Then we cut back to the island in which the Spiders Cafe, or I should say the new Spiders Cafe, is on. And we see Miss Golden Week for the first time in a while after the time skip. This is her time skip appearance. And she appears along with the backs of Miss Merry Christmas, also known as Dorothy. And we have Miss Valentine. I think her name was Moraine? I can't remember. And Miss Golden Week's name is Marianne. I know that. But what I didn't notice at first, but I notice it right now, Miss Golden Week has a hat in the shape of an apple that looks like Vegapunk's antenna, like beat for beat. So that's funny. I didn't catch that. I've done many videos about Miss Golden Week. I never caught that up until now. That's so funny. That's so funny. It doesn't mean anything, but I find it hilarious. Go now back to Water 7, and Vegapunk goes on to say, that begs the question, how would such a flood occur? Naturally, your first inclination might be to assume it was some kind of natural disaster, which of course. However, I can say for certain that it was no such thing. It was all a man-made calamity, which we can believe based on what the Mother Flame did to Lulucia Kingdom. Cutting back to Big News Morgan's ship, we see Vivi shutting up Morgans as Wappo listens on nervously in the background. Vegapunk goes on to say, if this catastrophe was brought about by natural means, there would be records denotating earlier warning signs several centuries earlier. It was a severe world-altering event after all. But all my research into meteorology, geology, and ecology, along with atmospheric science, confirm that there was no such natural buildup. It is impossible for such a drastic change to happen spontaneously within the span of a mere 100 years, meaning the cause lies elsewhere. My suspicions were confirmed a few days ago when I analyzed the world's current sea levels. This would be hard to accept, but that disaster 800 years ago was caused by ancient weapons, technology capable of sinking the world, which means the Mother Flame most likely is a replica of an ancient weapon, probably Uranus, if I were to guess, which I think is what a lot of people were saying. I don't think it's the actual ancient weapon Uranus, because the ancient weapons would do more damage than this, but this also begs the question, were the ancient weapons technology in the case of man-made things? Which from what he's saying, that seems to be the case, because the ongoing theory that has been a thing for a while, actually, is that there were two sets of ancient weapons, meaning you have, I suppose, the allies of Joy Boy having their own weapons, so that's where you get Zunisha, presumably, and then you have Poseidon, which is of course the mermaid princess and her command over the Sea Kings. So that leads me to believe that the ones that have blueprints for their creation, like the one that Frankie burnt up back in Ennis Lobby, were the countermeasure to stop the army of Joy Boy. And that's something that people have said for a long time. And that seems to be the case, because I cannot see with them being related to technology here that they are the same ancient weapons that we've been introduced to so far. So maybe there are two sets of ancient weapons and we only know the first set, which I forget where Uranus is actually mentioned, but I know so far we have Poseidon and Pluton. So there are probably three others somewhere that we don't know. Or no, I take that back. Pluton is probably in the scope of the ones that are considered technology because of the blueprints. That's right. So there is no naturally occurring Pluton that we know of. There's probably a counterpart that's naturally occurring, which could be anything. It could be Zunisha. It could be anything. But so far, we know that the one naturally occurring weapon is Poseidon. So I wonder what they are then, because if that's true, we've only seen one of each. We've seen one natural one in Poseidon and one artificial one that's man-made in Pluton. So I wonder which one the Mother Flame was trying to replicate, because I'm thinking it's Uranus, but it may not have been. I don't know. We'll have to find out, because this is something that's been very touch and go throughout the entirety of the story, with the only direct answer and direct method of what the weapon actually is or what it consists of is when we talk about Poseidon. So yeah, possibly there were two sets. If there was a great war, both sides would have to have their own super weapons. So in this case, I think the 20 allied kingdoms had the ancient weapons that Vegapunk is talking about, whereas Joy Boy's weapons for his army were the naturally occurring ones. So Poseidon and two others. But moving on, and that very same firepower evidently still exists, just waiting to be used again. In other words, that great war which ravaged the world during the Void Century is still ongoing. And when that is said, we see Emu in their garden and we get a close-up of their eyes again. Still no face reveal though. The face reveal of Emu is going to be wild, but yeah, this is a wild chapter. We got to see people we haven't seen for years. We get a revelation that, yeah, the One Piece world is Water World. This has been an amazing chapter, bro. Oh, man. And no break next week. No break next week. I'm over the moon about that. No break next week. Man. But, oh, my goodness. There's so much to think about now. Because that just puts into perspective how big places are. And like places that are weird, like Long Ring Longland, how do they actually look underneath the water surface? How do they look? How big is Long Ring Longland? You know, it's just something really interesting to think about. I wonder if Joy Boy went around the world in an attempt to stretch as many islands as he could so they wouldn't be affected by the rising tides. I wonder, because we don't know how far Luffy's abilities can go, because they were described as boundless, which, I mean, that seems like a ridiculous character statement, but that just might be true because we don't know how far things are actually going to go for him. But yeah, I think we're going to be wrapping up a lot of big things in the future. I think the crew is actually going to come together, and we're going to get a final conclusion about how many people we're going to have on the main crew. Stussy is a very interesting case, though, because as she's talking to Edison, I wonder where her place is going to be, because she is a big loose end. So, I don't know, because the idea of her joining, I wonder, is that too ludicrous to think about? Because she does have character. She just doesn't have a whole lot of things to go for now in the way she's been set up. But I don't know. It's interesting to think about, because the cool thing about her is that she is a clone of a rocks pirate. But then, too, she still is her own person. But she has no dreams. And we don't have someone like her on the crew. And she does fit the mold of rare creatures that we do have. I don't know. Am I moving off of Carrot to Stussy? I don't know. I don't know. That's something really interesting to think about, though, because it's weird how unique of a character she is. And I've talked about this before. She's got a lot of accolades under her belt. There's a lot of things going on. She's been a Cypherpole agent. She's been a member of the underworld. She's the first human clone in history. She could be the first artificial Doffer user in history. There's a lot going on. She's a 6 powers user. She has her own unique variant of paper arts with the whole hologram thing she does, which she used to dodge Lucy that one time. So I don't know. She is a very interesting character, and Bonnie does know about her. So yeah, I wonder where she's going to go, because Lucy didn't kill her when he striked her, so she still is a factor in the narrative. But she really does give me Robin vibes again, but she's just missing that piece. I don't know what she would present for the world at large. She could join Neomads. That's a possibility, because the original Miss Bucking was in Mads, but based on her loyalty to Vegapunk, I don't know if it makes sense for her to join people who initially hated Vegapunk, seeing as how she most likely is the foil to York in this situation, because I've often thought York despises Vegapunk because he did not seek her counsel on any sort of scientific endeavors. He only used her for a stomach and a rectum. And it's funny that they're both blue-eyed blondes. So you have one, and I guess both of them are clones too, in a way, because technically York is a clone of Vegapunk. But whereas York has aspirations for herself, Stussy has none. So yeah, that's something to think about. I don't know. And then too, Miss Bucking was a Rocks pirate. Stussy, the original, was a pirate as well on the Roxas crew. And I've often said Luffy's crew is probably going to reflect Rox more than it reflected Roger, but Bucky's crew also reflects Rox's crew more than it reflects Roger, and both of them seem to be inspired by Roger in one way or another, yet none of their crews replicate Roger's, which I find very fascinating. Yeah, that's something to think about, because too, you could also consider Luffy's crew a mixed bag between Roger and Rox's, because, well, where Luffy has built up a crew, he's also gained a bunch of people who were infamous before joining his crew, like Robin, kind of like Brooke, and of course like Jinbei. So, and presumably Bonnie in the future. So I don't know. But with that being said, man, excellent chapter. Again, no break next week. And yeah, give me your thoughts. We're gonna be making more videos about this, but yeah, give me your thoughts.